system that recognizes, that protects you as workers. That's a given. So that people can come in legally. By the way, a lot of people that have come here in undocumented status, they wind up staying. They didn't want to. If they had been able to come here and work temporarily, they'd have left their family at home. They would, and they would have gone back and forth. It would have helped Mexico. It would have helped us along the way. By the way, I have to say this, Chris. You say the only thing you want to do is take away just the job, not anything else. You don't want to hurt the people. But you supported the legislation, farmers market, that would allow renters of apartments to, simply based upon someone's immigration status, to prevent them from renting a home. That's pretty cruel to me, taking away their option to be able to rent somewhere. And you support the 1070 that would have given police officers who are busy enough with serious crimes, you wanted to deputize them so they would run out and arrest and detain people, not because the individuals were committing any serious criminal act, but simply because they had an immigration infraction. So I think that's pretty cruel.
Go ahead, do
Okay, yeah, with regard to SB 1070, now as a fellow attorney, you need to state the law carefully. The SB 1070, the provision which is still in effect that he's talking about, does not deputize police officers to go out and just make arrests. That provision says if, and this one's the one the Supreme Court upheld, that if you are an officer, you pull someone over for speeding, and you develop reasonable suspicion that the people in the vehicle are not here lawfully.
That's called driving while Hispanic.
No, it's not. And it even had a provision in the law specifically saying that no enforcement of this law can be based in any respect on a person's ethnicity or race. And so the officer would have lost his job if he pulled someone over for driving while Hispanic. But let's go into what the law actually says. Then you must contact the 24/7 hotline that ICE has had since 1994, where any law enforcement officer in America can call and say, does this person have authorization to be legally in the United States? That's all it did. It didn't force the officer to do anything out of his way. It's just when in the course of his normal duties, he came across and developed reasonable suspicion that he was talking to someone unlawfully in the country, he was simply supposed to act on it. And then pick up the phone and call ICE and let them decide what to do, if anything, about the case.
Of course, the provisions that were found to be unconstitutional would have authorized the police officer to arrest someone solely because they were here in the country.
No, the provisions that were struck down.
Reasonable suspicion. That was struck down by the Supreme Court.
No, the reasonable suspicion was the one I just told you. The ones that were struck down is one that made the seeking of unlawful employment a criminal act. It's criminal to hire someone. It would have made on the state level the seeking of unlawful employment a criminal act. And it also would have allowed the state to do parallel enforcement of what is already a federal crime of being in the United States without having your visa on your person. Believe it or not, it has been federal law since 1945, that you actually have to have one's immigration documentation on your person. It would have allowed the state to parallel enforce that federal crime. Those are the ones that are struck down.
I said that. You would have allowed...
You said reasonable suspicion, and that is still the law in Arizona, and that was upheld by a majority of the U.S. Supreme Court.
I'm going to jump in right now. I've made a horrifying mistake, and I've just realized it. I had photographs of Owen Ross being arrested in front of the White House because of the draconian policies of President Obama. And I was going to show those right now, but I don't think we have them do we have them loaded? We don't have those. I will get those for you later. Okay, I am coming in, and I'm not kidding. I am going to come in and ask a question, and then we're going to come to the audience here. So this morning we were over at the Sacred Heart Church, or the center there, and we saw immigrants coming in that were coming under what's known as DACA, I believe. Chris and Charles and Jose as well, if you want to, could you, first of all, tell us what DACA is, and is it good or bad? What the heck is it? What does it mean? I don't know. I guess Charles is going to go first.
Yeah, DACA stands for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. It meant, under an executive order action of President Obama in 2012, it allowed individuals who had come here as children, who met certain other requirements, to obtain deferred action. Deferred action goes back in the regulations of the old INS back to 1974. As an attorney, I've used it. It just says, we're going to prioritize enforcement, and we're not going to, for this stipulated period of time, which could be revoked by the government at any time, we're not going to seek your removal. And as part of that, and it's always been the case, you can also get interim work authorization. So for a large class, I think estimated 700,000, approximately 800,000 of these individuals who in some cases were brought here as an infant, who were raised here all their lives, who never knew their home country, perhaps didn't speak the language of their home country, and for the first time gave them hope. And that was done when Congress repeatedly failed to take action. I've got so many heartwarming stories about a young girl whose mother was a domestic, and she went ahead and graduated at the top of her class at Harvard, at Rice, then a master's degree in Harvard. She's DACA. And I could go on and on and on that allowed kids who just, they're as American as anybody, because they've lived here all their lives, to have hope. And the opponents of that, I think, are cruel in the sense they say they should go back and qualify without telling you that that's legally impossible for all practical purposes. Now, the President of the United States, again, and I was very involved with that and followed that in 2014, only when Speaker Boehner, to his frustration, could not hold together his caucus, failed to respond to the Senate bill 744 passed in 2013 to enact comprehensive immigration reform. By the way, in background, the President and the Speaker, they had a deal. The President would have taken a half a loaf. There had been no pathway to citizenship. But whatever it was, no matter what it was called amnesty, and these same members of his caucus, I talked to them, they said, you're right, it's all great, it's good, it's the best thing, but I'm scared to death if I vote for it, someone's gonna run against me. So when that fell apart, the President held on. Finally, he introduced his controversial executive actions of November 20th, 2014 that expanded DACA and also provided for DAPA, Deferred Action for Parental Accountability, that allowed approximately half of the undocumented population to obtain deferred action and work authorization. Then Attorney General Greg Abbott sought an injunction here in the U.S. Division here in the U.S. District Court, Southern District, and that was enjoined, and I won't go through all of that. It was upheld by the Fifth Circuit, and the Supreme Court was unable to make a decision. They split 4-4. I think that was the right thing to do. I know Chris will say it's the greatest unconstitutional act in American history, except there's one little problem. President Reagan did it, and President George H.W. Bush did it. Particularly President Bush, who I know quite well, did it in a way that was very comparable. And I remembered, I was there when they did it, and I had people that took advantage of it. So I think that was a great thing. I'm sorry that the court split, the Supreme Court. I hope that can be rectified. By the way, none of that would be necessary if Congress would do their duty. They failed to, and they, not because every Republican leader, modern leader, John McCain, even Romney, he got a little bad advice along the way, but he's repented now. Romney, McCain, George W. Bush, Ronald Reagan, Paul Ryan, they all support broad-based comprehensive immigration reform. But it's the talk radio and immigration restrictionists that prevent them from doing common sense reform.
Okay, I feel like I've had an iron fist, but we're short on time, and I want Chris to respond to this, then we're coming to the audience.
He agrees with everything I said.
Okay, yeah, so a little bit of a upfront disclosure. So I'm very involved in the DACA case, the DACA policy. I represent 10 ICE agents who sued the Obama administration. And indeed, Director Saldana was one of our defendants for a little while. She got moved into the position when she came in. So let me talk about that. The way the policy works is, it's not just people who are born in the United States. Well, if you're born in the United States, it doesn't even apply to you. People came in as infants. To qualify, you merely have to assert that you came into the United States under the age of 16. You don't have to prove it, you just have to assert it. And you still have to be 30 years of age or younger, 30 or younger to claim it. Now, there are three major problems with it. One is, it's a usurpation of Congress's power. Our legislative authority to grant amnesties is vested in the Congress by the United States Constitution. Congress debated the DREAM Act, which is what DACA basically did. It took the DREAM Act and then put it into this enforcement policy, or non-enforcement policy. And Congress debated 24 different DREAM Act bills from 2001 to 2012. None of them passed. I accept that there are reasonable, good arguments a person could make for that legislation, but we are a country of laws where you have to persuade members of Congress to adopt your law if we want to have that amnesty. President Obama did an end run and said, okay, I'm just going to do it myself through this deferred action for 1.4 million people. So first of all, that's not the way our constitutional system works. Let's debate it in Congress and try to get the votes if you believe we should have a dreamer amnesty. Number two, it orders ICE agents to violate the law, and that was the injury faced by our 10 ICE agents representing the larger body of ICE agents. Congress passed a law in 1996. It was the end of the catch and release policies, basically. In 96, the new law says that if you apprehend someone who you believe is not lawfully present and not admissible, is the term of legal art, into the United States, you must initiate removal proceedings immediately. And it actually says you must detain them, at least for a temporary period, immediately. The Obama DACA order orders ICE agents to break the law. Now, I'm not saying just orders them to ignore the law. It orders them to themselves break federal law. And that's why the ICE agents were up in arms and wanted to sue. But the third problem is that DACA also has a public safety problem with it too. Because it is based on mere assertion, it has been abused by criminals. And let me give you this is from direct testimony in federal district court in Northern District of Texas from one of our ICE agents. He works in the San Antonio area office. And they got a call from the San Antonio jail. And they said, we have a person here who is illegally in the country. He's acknowledged that. He's a gang member, has tattoos, confirming his gang status, and he's arrested for assault. We would like you guys to deport him because they're not going to go through all the motions of a criminal trial to go through the state system just on an assault case. But they would like, this is a gang member, please deport him. The two ICE officers go over, pick him up, they start moving him to the ICE vehicle, and the young man starts to try to break free. And then he starts assaulting the ICE officers, dislocating the shoulder of one of the ICE officers and severely injuring the other one, and then starts running. They give chase. They eventually tackle him. They eventually get him into the vehicle. They take him to the ICE office, and at that point, because he's been talking to other illegally present individuals in the jail, he realizes all I have to do is say I'm eligible. So he says, I'm here, I'm eligible for the Obama amnesty. He uses those words, Obama amnesty. And the supervisor of that San Antonio office says, okay, let him go. And the two ICE officers say, wait, he just assaulted us. We picked him up because of state charges of assault, and he assaulted a federal officer, and he resisted arrest. And the guy says, yeah, let him go. But you think, well, wait a minute, the Obama policy should have something in there about criminals, right? You can't take advantage of this if you're a criminal. Only if you are convicted of a serious crime, of a higher level crime. So that DACA amnesty protected that guy who assaulted federal law enforcement officers, and there are many other cases which we presented to the Northern District Court. So DACA it's always presented in rosy rainbow terms of it's just about these people who came in before the age of 2. No, it's being used in large number by a lot of people who assert that they came in and probably didn't even qualify in the first place.
Owen is screaming at me in my earpiece, so I've got to move to an audience. In that 1 second, I'll give you 20 seconds.
I gotta move on.
I'll give you 30 seconds, Charles.
So in just 20 seconds, I want to take us out of the thicket of the law school debate we're having here and remind you what this is really about. This is about people, and extended DACA and DAPA would have benefited 750,000 working men and women in our state. It would have increased the state GDP by almost $39 billion. It was absolutely the right and smart thing to do. How is that for a rosy picture on DACA and DAPA?
Again, I want to go back. This was, there's a couple of false sort of parallels. Chris said that Congress failed to enact the DREAM Act, therefore DACA is the same thing. It's not. DACA is a very temporary deferred action. It can be revoked at any time. It's not permanent residency. One does not relate to the other at all. He says all you got to do is merely assert that. We actually represent people. You've got a heavy burden of proof. We struggle with those cases. No one just says, hey, I'm here, and they just, the government just says that. For every bad apple, maybe this guy was a bad apple, I can give you hundreds of cases of people who just grew up here all their lives, and they have no hope at all, and this gave them hope. And one more important thing. There was something else I just had to say, but anyway.
Hold on to it if we have time to end. Okay, I want to take it to the audience. Lady in red.